Boldwood presents The Last Resort, written by T.J. Emerson and read by Karen Cass and Claire Story. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Prologue. Cyprus. October 2008. The day Sophia will never forget is a beautiful autumn one. It is early afternoon, and she is sitting at the desk in her small bedroom, looking out of the window, mesmerized by the gold and crimson leaves of the cedar trees, and by the tall pines, evergreen, by the Troodos Mountains, their green summer pelts now russet brown. Open on her desk is Algebra for Beginners. The tattered textbook, published in 1981, contains the exercises she is supposed to be doing for her maths homework. She closes it and opens the Encyclopedia of Greek Myths instead. Charles, the benefactor of the Pure Heart community, gave her this book last week for her 12th birthday. She is currently reading the chapter about the underworld, a dark and scary land of the dead, where people seem to disappear and other people go and rescue them. She glances at the door that connects her room to her mother's. This building was once a hotel, and she and Eva have adjoining bedrooms. Eva is still asleep. On the days when her depression is at its worst, she can sleep all day. As if, Sophia thinks, Eva is lost in her own dark underworld. If only Sophia could rescue her. She is trying. Everyone at Pure Heart is trying, especially Quinn. When Sophia was younger, she thought Quinn was a witch. The potions, the chanting that sounded like magic spells, the black cat that followed her everywhere. Eva says Quinn is a powerful healer. Eva says only Quinn can cure her. Sophia, who loves Quinn with all her heart, is sure this is true. Over the summer, it seemed as though Quinn's magic was working. Her mother was happier, less erratic than usual. Recently, the deep depression has returned, and Sophia can't stop doubt creeping in. Doubt is bad. Quinn has told her many times that for a miracle to happen, everyone must believe in it. And Eva appears. "You're up," Sophia says. Eva smiles. "I am up." Her mother is awake and smiling, and Sophia's heart floods with joy. Eva is wearing a long white dress with thin straps and gold Grecian sandals. She looks like one of the goddesses on the front of the Encyclopedia of Greek Myths. "You look beautiful." Sophia wishes she looked like her mother. But while Eva is tall and blonde, Sophia is short for her age and plump. Her thick, dark hair reaches down to her shoulders. Her father, who died when she was 2 years old, was Italian, so she probably inherited her colouring from him. She and Eva do share the same dark eyes, and Eva says she didn't grow tall until she was 14, so there's still hope. "You are beautiful." Eva strolls over to the desk and kisses the top of Sophia's head. "You, Sophia Belova, are the most beautiful girl in the whole world." Eva doesn't speak Russian anymore, but her English is still heavily accented and lends all her statements an air of conviction. "I am going for a walk," Eva says. "Is good for me." "Shall I come?" Sophia asks, delighted her mother is having one of her good days and keen to enjoy it with her. "No." Eva ruffles her hair. "You must do homework." "I am." "I think maybe you are reading your new book." Charles says the classics are the only education a person needs. Eva laughs. "Crazy man." Eva sits on Sophia's narrow bed and tightens the delicate straps of her sandals. "We're having moussaka tonight," Sophia says, knowing the dish is one of Eva's favourites. She hopes Eva will eat a proper meal. She is so thin these days, bony and brittle, surviving on tiny mouthfuls of food like a baby bird. "It will be delicious," Eva says. "And the new people will be at dinner. You can meet them." Sophia describes the 3 newcomers, 2 Swedish women and a man from Wales. Pure Heart now has 17 members, the most ever. Sophia is still the only child. She always enjoyed being the centre of attention, but recently she's been longing for some friends her own age. "Shouldn't you put a coat or a jumper on?" Sophia asks. "You'll be cold." "I will be fine." "Okay," Sophia says, used to her mother's eccentric dress sense. "See you later." Eva blows her a kiss. "See you later." In the future, Sophia will replay this moment over and over. "See you later." So casual her mother's last words to her. No hint of what was coming. That kiss floating invisible towards her. How she will wish she could have caught it and put it in a jar and kept it forever. Part 1.
Chapter 1. Holly, 2019. What happened at Pure Heart last year was a tragedy. I have yet to process it fully. I'm not sure I ever will. The terrible events that took place that night were sensationalized in newspapers and reported on television. The truth lost amidst clickbait headlines. Sometimes it's hard to remember exactly what occurred. When I think about it now, I have to remind myself that we, the members of the Pure Heart community, believed in miracles. In the late 1990s, after the founding members met in Ibiza, we decided we wanted to make a life for ourselves outside of mainstream society, an alternative existence filled with peace, love, and harmony. A new millennium was approaching and, ready to abandon Ibiza and its hedonism, we asked the universe to provide us with the perfect place to live out our dream. At the start of that new millennium, we came to Cyprus, and the universe gave us exactly what we were looking for. It's hard to describe the joy we felt when we first saw our new home. A former hotel on the northern foothills of the Troodos Mountains, surrounded by forests of cedar and pine. In the 1950s and 1960s, the hotel was popular with wealthy Cypriots and tourists seeking relief from the intense heat and humidity of the coast in summer. Business thrived for decades until the area fell out of fashion. As well as respite from the fierce summers, the hotel also offered its guests privacy. A narrow, winding access road led from a slightly larger road that in turn led to the main road through the mountains. One way in, one way out. The 2-story building had 3 connecting wings that enclosed a large courtyard. It gave the illusion of rustic simplicity. Wooden roof, whitewashed stone walls, ceilings crossed with thick oak beams, and wide flagstone corridors. A simplicity that suited us and our minimalist philosophy. It also had flamboyant touches we couldn't resist keeping. The faux, ancient Greek statues that kept watch from the hotel's landings and stood guard in the courtyard. Gods and goddesses with stunted arms and blank eyes. The swimming pool shaped like a heart. The gaudy mural of the Furies. The 3 Greek goddesses of revenge that kept watch over the courtyard from the central wing of the building. That first day there, we all sensed the potential of the place. 15 bedrooms, a large industrial kitchen, spacious communal areas, and plenty of terraced land where we could grow fruit and vegetables, as well as herbs that would nourish and heal. We stood in the hotel courtyard, looking out across the hills. In the distance, we could see the deep blue water of Morfu Bay in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. The steep limestone mountains that rose behind the hotel cut us off from the rest of southern Cyprus. Cut us off in a way that filled me with peace and relief. That was the moment I shed any doubts I had about abandoning the safe, conventional life my parents had planned for me. At 23 years old, I knew I'd found my sanctuary. The others did too. Here, we could create a life most people only dream of. We'd never have to waste our time doing jobs we hated to make money we didn't have time to enjoy. We were going to be free. Yes, we at Pure Heart believed in miracles, and over the years, wonders small and large filled our lives. We thought the universe was benevolent and had only our best interests at heart. Even when a hard lesson or a tough loss came our way, we saw it as a chance to learn and grow. That is why, when we were facing the greatest challenge in the history of our community, we knew the unexpected email that arrived from Sophia was the answer to our prayers. We knew another miracle had occurred. We didn't know Sophia coming back into our lives would change us forever. We didn't know one of us was going to die.
Chapter 2. Quinn. 2018. On Friday, June the 29th, the day of Sophia's arrival, Quinn, the founder of Pure Heart, leaps out of bed at 5 a.m. She has already been awake for 2 hours, her small, agile body motionless in her narrow single bed, her green eyes staring out into the darkness. It is almost time. Despite the special day ahead, still dressed in her orange cotton pajamas, she makes her bed, methodically tucking the white sheet beneath the mattress, folding the thin orange blanket on top of it, and thumping her one hard pillow back into shape. Her bedroom contains her bed, a bedside table, and a chest of drawers. The furniture is made of heavy, dark wood, just like the shutters on her window. The exposed stone walls are painted white. Not all the rooms in the former hotel are as basic as hers, but she prefers simplicity. She arrived at Pure Heart with a small rucksack of possessions and, apart from books and basic clothing, has acquired little else in her 18 years here. She sees herself as living a monkish existence. Her hair makes her look like a monk. 7 years ago, when it turned from raven black to silver, she shaved it close to her head and has kept the low-maintenance style ever since. As she leans over the sink in her small ensuite bathroom and startles her face with cold water, she wonders what changes Sophia will see in her, apart from the hair, of course. After patting her face dry with a hand towel, she takes a rare look at herself in the mirror. Sophia is 22 now, and she is 59, and she wonders how different she will look to the younger woman. People often say she doesn't look her age, and even though she resists attachment to anything superficial, she knows by society's standards she is considered attractive. Still, she can't help being mildly repulsed by the deep lines around her eyes and the horizontal grooves across her forehead. Then she reminds herself these lines are evidence of a life well lived and of wisdom. Still dressed in her pajamas, she moves through to the living area, adjoining her bedroom, another tranquil, sparsely furnished space. A worn armchair, and a low coffee table with a kettle, a mug, and a glass jar of mountain tea on it. A pine desk by the window. A bookcase along one wall, crammed with books on spirituality, healing, and the religious traditions of the world. Quinn believes all the great spiritual traditions have something to offer, and over the years she has created her own eclectic program of transformation, After all, as she often tells the others at Pure Heart, they should never believe in dogma. Quinn's most loyal cat. Strong and sleek and black with emerald green eyes. She is 7 years old and is the self-appointed queen of the other 20 or so stray cats that have made their home at Pure Heart. When Quinn enters the room, Aphrodite slips down from the chair and curls herself around Quinn's small, neat feet. Purrs in response to Quinn's gentle stroking. "Time to go out," Quinn asks. The cat slinks over to the door and waits until Quinn releases her for her morning prowl of the premises. After closing the door, Quinn unrolls her yoga mat in the centre of the room and sits on it cross-legged. Eyes closed against the dawn light creeping through the window, she meditates. Transcendental meditation, a technique she learned decades ago from the Maharishi himself in an opulent hotel in Switzerland. After meditation comes 30 minutes of Ashtanga yoga, a practice she took up while living in an ashram in Kerala in southern India. A week from now, Quinn will turn 60, but as she moves through a series of sun salutations, she feels fitter than she did in her 20s. A little wear and tear, knees that twinge with arthritis in the colder months, but she believes her energy, her soul essence, has never been so pure. After yoga, she sits at her desk, puts on her reading glasses and writes in her daily gratitude journal. Grateful to still be here in this beautiful place. Grateful for all the joy in my heart. Grateful our little Sophia is coming back to us. The words blur as she stares at them. Her prescription for glasses is a year out of date, but she can't afford a visit to the optician. She closes the journal and makes herself a mug of mountain tea. The sideritas plant grows plentifully on the hillsides nearby, and Quinn picks it herself and dries the flowers and leaves to create the tea. So many health benefits. Everyone at Pure Heart loves it. Shunning the comfort of her armchair, she sits again on her yoga mat. It is almost 6:15. In just over 6 hours, Sophia will be here. At least that's what she said in the email she sent 2 days ago. Quinn hasn't heard from her since. She doesn't have a phone number for Sophia, even though she made sure to pass on the community's landline number. Will she hire a car? Quinn doesn't like the thought of the young woman navigating the winding mountain roads. What if something happens to her? She glances across at the bookcase, at the framed photograph of Charles she keeps there, their beloved benefactor, whose money made the dream of Pure Heart a reality. In March, Charles died in his sleep, aged 83, and Quinn found herself blindsided as the dire state of his finances emerged. When she told the others they only had enough money to keep Pure Heart going for a few months, she assured them they'd find a way to survive. The universe had sent them what seemed like an impossible challenge, but if they kept the faith, they would find a way. After her rousing speech, she looked around at the remaining 5 members of the Pure Heart community and saw the fear and doubt on their faces. For one terrible moment, she thought they might leave. For the first time, she felt uncertain of their love for their community. Then, she realized that, despite everything she'd done to help them heal and evolve over the years, they didn't possess her strength or her wisdom. How could they? As founder of the community, it was up to her to show them the path through the darkness. Not that Quinn has ever aspired to leadership, no. Never in her life has she sought that kind of status, yet over and over she finds herself in charge. She promised them if they shared her belief, the rest would follow. She led them in the sacred rituals that held them together as a community. They danced together. They exorcised their impurities in the sweat lodge. They sat in a circle and chanted. They did all they could to access their higher selves, to connect to the source of all things, and to create the abundance they needed. When, last month, at a community meeting, she read out to the others the email that had arrived from Sophia, so unexpected and miraculous and yet, in some ways, so inevitable, she watched their doubt and fear transform into wonder. Abundance had manifested in a way they could never have imagined. Quinn knew without doubt that each of them loved Pure Heart as much as ever. Each of them loved her. Questions were, however, unavoidable. Are you sure that's a good idea, Quinn? Like all strong leaders, she provided reassurances. She didn't tell them about the dread that pulsed through. How did Sophia even get the email address? Pure Heart didn't have a website or any online presence. As she read Sophia's words, Quinn remembered the terrible day she was taken from them. The stern, middle-aged woman, sent by Sophia's grandparents to collect her, bundling the sobbing, hysterical child into the back of a sleek Mercedes with blacked-out windows. Other memories surfaced too, harder ones she has not yet fully come to terms with. She put her tea aside and gets up from her yoga mat. The past does not exist, she says. The past does not exist. This mantra is one of the community's founding beliefs, one they all share. She is nervous about the day ahead, so much still to do, and everyone is relying on her to make this visit a success. She won't fail them. She will do everything she can to ensure Pure Heart and its vision survive. On the bottom shelf of the bookcase is a pack of tarot cards wrapped in a piece of purple tie-dye cotton. She needs a sign from a higher power to help her this morning. She picks up the bundle of cards, carries it over to her desk, and unfolds the tie-dye fabric with reverence. The tarot cards have shiny silver backs, and their familiar weight comforts her as she shuffles them. She lays them out across the desk in a long fan, and, with her eyes closed, she lets her right hand hover over the spread before diving in with thumb and forefinger to pluck out a card. When she opens her eyes and turns the card over, she finds a skeleton in a jaunty hat looking up at her. A skeleton with a wide, toothless grin splitting its skull. A skeleton that represents death.
Chapter 3. Holly, 2019. The media coverage of that violent August night often misrepresented us. Pure Heart was not a cult. We were an intentional community, all of us sharing a common purpose, but each of us free to follow our own spiritual path. Some of us believed we were a soul family, destined to reincarnate together over and over, and share our lives so we could learn the lessons necessary for our souls to evolve. Whatever our personal beliefs, each of us abided by the community's 7 founding principles. We painted them above the front entrance of the building. The past does not exist. The good of the community comes before individual desires. We believe in miracles. To live in the light, we must embrace the darkness. Our souls are not for sale. One Cypriot newspaper accused us of being ignorant expats exploiting the island's cheap property prices and low living costs. Nothing could be further from the truth. We knew we lived in a land still divided by conflict. In his youth, Charles spent many summers at his aunt's villa in Famagusta. He was there when the invasion happened in the summer of 1974 and had to flee the approaching Turkish army. Some newspaper reports depicted him as a debauched heroin addict with ties to the British aristocracy, but, thanks to Quinn, Charles kicked his destructive drug habit decades before his death. The reports of his aristocratic connections were true. He'd always intended to return to Cyprus and give something back to the island he loved so much. We wanted to create a utopia within this complex country, to project peace and positivity into our surroundings, to live a life untainted by the corruption of the capitalist world and its war machine. When we started Pure Heart, everyone contributed what they could, but compared to Charles, we had little to give. He didn't care. What was money between family, he often said. He transferred his considerable fortune into the hands of Evimeria Assets, a wealthy management company based in Limassol, and then used the interest from his investments to keep Pure Heart going and to pay each of us a small monthly income. He told us the bulk of his money remained untouched. After his death, when his financial advisor, Michalis, paid us a visit, we discovered this was not the case. To be honest, money had been sparse in the year leading up to his death, and we were already living on a tight budget. The winter was a cold, miserable one, and there were times we went hungry. Charles told us he had a temporary cash flow issue, and that as soon as a few of his larger investments matured, everything would be fine. When he died, we discovered that as well as losing everything in bad investments, he'd remortgaged the Pure Heart property. Only a miracle could save our beloved home from repossession. When I heard Sophia wanted to come and stay with us for a month, I was overjoyed. I'd loved her like she was my own. We all did. I knew it might be difficult for her to return to the place where Eva died, but Pure Heart was her home. In her email, she told us her grandparents were now dead, and she claimed she was feeling lost. Before taking up, she wanted to retreat from the world, to be in a safe space where she could find herself again and heal. How could we refuse her? When she first offered to pay for her stay with us, we refused. Even though she offered a generous sum of money, we said no. Sophia insisted she wanted to give something back to the people who helped raise her and to the place where she'd shared so many happy times with her mother. We would have welcomed Sophia, whether she had money or not, but after a unanimous vote, we agreed to accept her kind gesture. After all, sometimes giving makes people feel good. Sophia paying for her stay in exchange for our help would also make her more invested in her own well-being and recovery. All we wanted to do was make her feel better.
Chapter 4. Insight Investigators Background Report. Andreas Constantinou, born March 18, 1956, to Nicoleta Constantinou and Stefanos Constantinou. He was born and raised in the small town of Lefka, now Lefka, in what is now the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. His father died in a terrorist bomb attack on a cafe in Nicosia in 1973. Like many Greek Cypriots, Andreas and his mother fled south when the Turkish army invaded in 1974 and settled in Kakopetria, a village in the Troodos Mountains 13 miles away from Pure Heart. This is the closest village to the community, and it's where the members go for basic supplies, etc. Andreas worked at the Pure Heart property when it was still a hotel. After the community moved in, they kept him on as a handyman. He lived in Kakopetria but did have a room at the community, so he could stay over when necessary. He often drank in the bars and cafes of Kakopetria and, like many, was still bitter about the invasion and the violence that preceded it. Not only did he lose his father, but his elder brother, Giorgos, stayed in the north to fight when the Turkish army invaded and went missing, like thousands of Cypriots on both sides of the conflict. Andreas was often in touch with the Committee on Missing Persons, who do incredible work finding the remains of those who went missing in the conflict. It seems he always hoped his brother's body would be discovered, but this never happened. I think it's fair to describe him as a man with a lot of sorrow and... Chapter 5. Quinn, 2018. A few minutes before 7 a.m., Quinn rushes from her room and skips down the first set of wooden stairs to the first-floor landing, leaving in her wake the scent of the homemade rose oil she applied to her neck and wrists after showering. She hums to herself, unable to stop smiling. The death card might have scared a novice. She's often seen people react with terror at the skeleton's morbid grin. All for nothing. Quinn knows that the card rarely, if ever, signifies actual death. No, the skeleton represents both a symbolic death and a rebirth, and she can't think of a more appropriate symbol for today. Sophia's visit is the start of a new phase for Pure Heart. She can feel it. Their recent troubles will die away, and abundance will bloom. The wood beneath her bare feet is warm. Quinn only wears shoes in winter. The rest of the year she prefers to connect directly to the ground, earthing herself, and using her feet as her ancient ancestors would have done. The silver bangles on her arms jangle like percussion as she moves. Silver pendulum earrings sway in her ears. Her best ceremonial jewellery, haggled for with an elderly tribal woman in the hills of northern Thailand when Quinn was in her 20s. The orange silk dress she wears, with its wide sleeves and wraparound design, came from the same tribe. She hasn't worn it for a long time, but this is no ordinary day. On the first-floor landing, the sound of a vehicle coming towards the building from the winding access road makes her stop, heart trembling. What if this is Sophia? What if she's come early? No one else is up yet. Nothing is ready. She exhales, relieved to see a black Toyota Hilux rumbling into the small car park at the front of the building. She forgot she'd asked Andreas to come in early today to help with the last-minute preparations. He parks between the grimy white Hilux and the battered Toyota Cressida that belonged to Pure Heart. "Calimera," she calls, as his wiry body springs down from the driver's seat. At 62, he is the only one in the community older than her. "Calimera," he replies with a wave, tilting his weathered face up to the window. He is dressed in his usual outfit of jeans and a black T-shirt, with a heavy checked shirt over the top. "Beautiful weather," she says in Greek. He nods and fires off a lengthy reply, also in Greek, a language which, despite all her years in Cyprus, Quinn still struggles to understand. She does not pick up the name Sophia. "You must be looking forward to seeing Sophia again," Quinn says, reverting to English. She hopes the visit won't dredge up painful memories of Eva for him. Like everyone at Pure Heart, he found it impossible not to fall under her spell. His grief for her was dark, intense, and, at times, unsettling. "It's been such a long time," she adds. "Not so long." He hauls his toolbox out of the back of the Hilux. Quinn supposes 10 years is nothing to Andreas. Decades of waiting for news of his missing brother has probably warped his perception of time. "How's Nicoletta?" she asks. "Is she settling in okay?" Even from this distance, she catches the pained expression that flits across Andreas' face. "She is good." He smooths back his tousled silver hair, as if worried his mother might appear and reprimand him for his scruffy appearance. Almost a year ago, Andreas had to put his 89-year-old mother into a care home in Limassol after her dementia became too much for him to handle. "It is hard," he says. Don't feel guilty, Andreas. You're an amazing son to her. The care home he's found for Nicoletta sounds like a good one. One of his cousins, a lawyer in Nicosia, is helping to cover the costs. After a brief discussion of the work Quinn wants completed before Sophia's arrival, Andreas makes his way to the gate at the side of the house and the passageway that leads directly into the courtyard. Even when the community had more members, many of them skilled with their hands, they still needed Andreas' practical expertise and local knowledge. Quinn sometimes wonders if he stays on at Pure Heart because he likes the community's commitment to forgetting the past. He, like many people, on both sides of this divided island, has plenty he would rather forget. Quinn has been urging him to give up drinking for years, with varying degrees of success. After he had a mild heart attack in his mid-50s, she thought he might finally see the importance of a healthy lifestyle, but apart from doing the occasional session in the sweat lodge, more than once he's described her spiritual beliefs as pelares, rubbish. But she knows he has superstitions of his own. She's seen the evil eye hanging from a hook above his bed, a blue glass pendant with a dark pupil at its centre. Mati to the Greeks, Nazar to the Turks. It is said to ward off evil spirits. As far as Quinn knows, Andreas hasn't had a drink since Christmas. No evil spirits for 6 months. As she closes the window, Quinn is briefly unsettled by the question of how she will pay for all the extra work Andreas has done recently. The money Sophia sent as a payment for her visit has gone. Quinn spent most of it on a few months of extortionate mortgage payments. After Charles died, Michalis, the financial advisor, did try and explain everything to her, but Quinn, who always left business decisions to Charles, can't get her head around it. All she knows is that the company Charles borrowed money from now owns their mortgage and is charging vast interest on top of the monthly payments. It would be easy to be angry with Charles, but Quinn loved him too much for that. She has had the occasional moment of frustration. She's only human. She shakes her head, trying to shake the worry away with it. The universe will provide. All they have to do is believe. Look at the abundance they've already received. The death card has made her certain there is even more to come. Onwards. So much still to do. She can hear banging sounds coming from the kitchen downstairs. She must see what everyone is up to. She did go through the drill for today at the community meeting last night, but she wants to make sure they stick to the plan. Before she can hurry down the next flight of stairs, a fluttering sensation in her belly stops her. She stands still and listens to what her body is trying to tell her. She's learned the hard way that intuition starts in the gut. Mel. Something to do with Mel. She turns and walks along the corridor to Mel's room, unable to dampen a surge of irritation. This morning? Really? Doesn't she have enough to deal with? She sighs. When people need you, they need you. Her gifts, unasked for, are both a blessing and a curse. Still, she must honour them. She is only a channel, a humble messenger. Mel, she says, are you okay? Chapter 6, Quinn, 2018. Come in, Mel's voice tremulous. Inside the room, Quinn finds the community's newest member on her burgundy yoga mat in a burgundy t-shirt and yoga trousers, her sturdy legs crossed. Her face is blotchy and the skin beneath her glacial pale blue eyes is puffy and raw. Are you okay? Quinn asks. Mel nods. I had a nightmare. I had a feeling something was wrong. Quinn kneels opposite her on the mat. Tell me everything. Mel stares at her. Is that a new dress? New to you, Quinn says, remembering Mel has only been with them for 8 months. You've got your ceremonial jewellery on. Well, today is a special occasion. Mel lowers her eyes. Of course. Mel's shoulder-length black hair, currently tucked behind her ears, is shiny with grease. Quinn knows one of the joys of living at Pure Heart is not having to make an effort with your appearance unless you choose to, but she hopes Mel will at least shower and change into something clean before Sophia arrives. You look lovely, Mel says, eyes still downcast. Tell me about the dream. Nightmare. Yes, tell me. Quinn can't help feeling guilty. She's been so busy preparing for Sophia's visit, she cancelled Mel's weekly intuitive healing session yesterday. There was a man, Mel says. His hands were around my throat. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. That's awful. Quinn opens her arms. Mel edges closer and leans into the hug, letting out a stifled sob. Quinn allows the distressed woman to rest against her chest. Even though she is now celibate, she believes nourishing, platonic touch is vital and feels Mel needs it more than most. Mel has always apologized for her shyness, and Quinn still senses resistance in her body, a result of the trauma she has suffered. It was so real, Mel says. Your past is behind you now. Quinn rubs Mel's back. Your relationship with your ex was abusive and dangerous, but you got out. You were strong. I don't always together. Mel nods but doesn't move. The weight of her head reminds Quinn of Blake, her last lover. After sex, he liked to rest his head on her chest while she stroked his dark dreadlocks. He was 15 years younger than her, but the age gap didn't matter to them. Blake said they were kindred souls, and souls were ageless. Quinn can't believe 9 years have passed since he left Pure Heart. Mel's sigh brings her back to the present. Her heart rate quickens at the thought of all the jobs she must get done before lunchtime. Some alternate nostril breathing will help, she says. Mel finally lifts her head, and the two women sit cross-legged on the mat, facing each other. Mel closes her eyes, and they breathe together, in through one nostril and out through the other. A yogic breathing exercise designed to calm the mind. Quinn breathes with her eyes open. She notices the burgundy robe hanging on the back of Mel's door, the colour of Tibetan Buddhism. Does Mel only wear one colour now? It's a while since she's been in Mel's room, but she can see how much it resembles her own. Folded on the neatly made bed is a burgundy blanket. The walls are bare, and on Mel's bedside table sits a pack of playing cards. Mel enjoys playing patience and solitaire. She claims to find the cards soothing. Quinn is pleased to see the bookshelf next to the window is crammed with self-help manuals and books on spirituality. She smiles. It's an honour to be a role model for Mel. A joy to pass her wisdom on to a spiritual beginner. Mel is such a different woman from the one who arrived at Pure Heart. She is less tormented, more open to experiencing joy. After a few moments, Quinn brings the breathing practice to a close. When Mel opens her eyes, Quinn can see she is calmer, more focused, more of her best self. Mel smiles. The power of breath work still amazes me. Quinn nods. Such a beautiful practice, so transformative. When I was on the force, I'd never have done anything even remotely alternative. I'm sure the police would be better for it. Quinn still finds it hard to believe that this shy, gentle woman was once a police officer and ended up as a detective inspector working organised crime. She finally resigned after being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. She told Quinn she has seen terrible things, the very worst of humanity. From the moment they met, Quinn knew Mel was destined to be part of the Pure Heart family. She often thinks back to their chance encounter at a cafe in Kakopatria. On her way back from the supermarket one morning, Quinn stopped in the village for a cup of tea and ended up sharing the only free table in the cafe with a stranger. An Englishwoman wearing sunglasses, even though they were sitting inside and it was October. They started talking, and when Mel removed her glasses, revealing bruises around her eyes and cheekbones, it didn't take long for Quinn to get her to open up. Mel explained she was in Cyprus for a holiday, after leaving an abusive relationship. She'd just resigned from the police and didn't know what to do with her life or where to go. Quinn invited her to stay at Pure Heart for a few nights, and Mel has been here ever since. You must be tired, Mel says. Tired? Why? Quinn is fizzing with energy, every cell buzzing. I heard you get up in the night to go to the bathroom. Did you have a bad night's sleep? Quinn casts her eyes up to the ceiling. Her bedroom and ensuite are directly above. The uneven wooden floors in all the bedrooms do little to soak up the noise. Mel must have heard her moving about all the time. I've got a lot on my mind, she says. What time is Sophia arriving? 12:30. In time for lunch. Well, that's what we arranged last week. I haven't heard from her since, but you haven't heard from her? Mel frowns. She should let you know if she'll be here. Quinn uncrosses her legs and gets to her knees. I wouldn't like you to be disappointed. The day after Sophia's initial email arrived, Quinn found Mel in the office, using the community's one shared laptop to search online for information about the Beloff family. Mel apologized for investigating, but said the policewoman in her couldn't resist. Quinn often wonders if Mel, with all her training and experience, can tell when a person is withholding information. What was she like as a child? Mel asks. Smart, Quinn smiles. Smart, always making up stories. It must have been amazing for Sophia to grow up here. Mel's voice is wistful. I'd be a totally different person if I'd grown up in a place like this. She did love it here. Quinn strokes her silver scalp. I hope she still does. I don't want things to change, Mel blurts out as if confessing. What we have here is so special. Resisting change is very human. Quinn rests her small, dry hands on Mel's face. But how can we grow if we aren't forced out of our comfort zone? Mel sighs. I know you're right. I'm sure your dream was just my nightmare. I'm sure the nightmare was just you processing the new situation. There's a lot to process. Quinn knows she must be patient with Mel. The trauma she experienced during her relationship and her career means she likes to feel in control at all times. I know we've had some tough challenges recently, she says, but I really think Sophia's visit is a sign things are going to change. Her knees creak faintly as she stands. We all made this happen, you know. Miracles like this are only possible when everyone believes. She smiles down at Mel. everyone. Mel gives her a half-smile in return. I know. Instinct tells Quinn there is a part of Mel still hidden. A secret self she hesitates to share despite all the good work they've been doing together. Not to worry. Quinn is sure that, with time, Mel will open up like a beautiful flower. With time, she will reveal her true self. Chapter 7. Quinn, 2018. Quinn steps out of Mel's room and closes the door behind her. Her hands sweep around the top of her head as she cleanses her aura. She is sensitive to the moods of others and must be careful not to absorb them. As she sets off along the flagstone corridor, 2 white kittens appear at her heels. "Hello, Apollo. Hello, Artemis," she says. The kittens follow her downstairs to the ground floor, chasing one another and tumbling over themselves. Before coming to Cyprus, Quinn never considered herself a cat person, but the island has a bigger feline population than a human one. According to legend, cats were in the 4th century by St. Helena, the mother of Constantine the Great. The cats were her solution to the venomous snakes that were threatening parts of the island. Now, Cyprus is overrun by cats, not snakes. As well as her connection to the cats of Pure Heart, Quinn also loves her hens. She's keen to get out and feed them, but first she needs to check on progress in the kitchen. Not that she needs to worry about the catering. Joe will be on top of everything. Normally on a Friday, he drives to the east coast of the island and visits the refugee camp, where he set up a kitchen a few years ago. He loves his voluntary work, but was happy to change his plans to accommodate Sophia. Joe is nowhere in sight when she enters the kitchen. What if he's forgotten about today and set off for the camp as usual? The comforting scent of freshly baked bread soothes her anxiety. 2 sourdough loaves sit cooling on one of the kitchen's stainless steel workstations. Joe has obviously been up for some time, getting ahead of schedule. The dark, cloying scent of coffee also permeates the air. Quinn glances at the large espresso pot on the industrial hob. Most of the community members have converted to her mountain tea now, but not everyone has her discipline. She hasn't touched coffee for 30 years, even though she found caffeine the hardest drug of all to give up. "Joe," she says, as the kittens tug at the hem of her dress. She picks a handful of red grapes from the fruit bowl beside the cooling bread and pops one into her mouth. The kitchen, once used to feed a busy hotel of guests, still has 2 stainless steel workstations, each with an oven and a large hob and grill. There is a tall, wide fridge and a deep chest freezer. All the equipment is old and prone to the occasional breakdown, but they can't afford to replace any of it. This room is where the community gathers, especially in the cold mountain winters. At the other end of the long space is a pine dining table that seats up to 14. Behind that, 2 saggy sofas flank the wood-burning stove. By the side of the stove, in a large basket, 2 cats are curled up together napping. Odysseus, a ball of ginger and white fluff, and Hera, her grey fur balding, are 2 of the community's oldest cats. The kitchen is a homely, quirky room, and Quinn loves it. Plants everywhere, as well as abandoned pairs of thongs and slippers. Open shelves are stacked with mismatched crockery and glasses, some of which belong to the former hotel. Framed images dating back to the beginning of Pure Heart. In recent days, they have reinstated the photographs of Eva they took down after her death. Quinn finds herself glancing away from the pictures now, still unable to look Eva in the eye. The kittens abandon her dress for the cat basket beside the fire, poking at the older cats with their paws until they are batted away. "Apollo, Artemis," Quinn says, "respect your elders." The kittens stop and look up at her, their deep blue eyes brimming with mischief. Mischief they turn on each other, leaving the seniors in peace. "Hey!" Startled, Quinn turns to see Joe's tall, bulky figure entering the door that leads from the side of the kitchen into the larder and utility room. In one hand he wields a large knife. "Good morning," he says. He hasn't lived in his native Scotland for decades now, but his gentle Perthshire accent is undiminished. "Hi," Quinn says. "Can't find the sharpener anywhere." Joe holds up the knife as if inviting Quinn to inspect it. "We could do with new knives, to be honest, but this'll do for now." Quinn opens her arms wide and, after putting the knife down, Joe enfolds her in a tight bear hug. "Big day," he says. "Huge. Holly and I hardly slept. How about you?" "Like the dead," Quinn says, glossing over the hours she spent staring at the ceiling. Joe's fleshy waist sags over her narrow forearms. Has he put on more weight? Quinn has always practiced moderation in all things, but has given up on Joe following her example. He's always been the main cook at Pure Heart, even when it had more members. When they part, Joe pats his stomach as if reading Quinn's thoughts. "I'm probably twice the size I was when Sophia last saw me. And you had hair." "Harsh," Joe chuckles. "Harsh, but true." He is 45 now, but his hair abandoned him in his 30s. Since then, he's opted for a shaved head and a big, bushy beard streaked with blonde, ginger and grey. They run through the menu again. Lunch, which Quinn wants to serve at 1 p.m, will be a Greek salad made with the fresh feta Joe picked up from a farm near Kakopatria. "I'll make flatbreads to go with that," Joe says. "We'll have the sourdough tonight." For dinner, Joe will roast 2 locally sourced quails. Sophia, Quinn told him, is no longer a vegetarian, but Joe will also make a vegetarian moussaka for those who are. Later, he will pick apricots from their orchard and make an apricot and walnut cake. There will be Cypriot wine for those who drink alcohol, and it's clear Joe is delighted to have a larger food budget again. He has done a brilliant job of feeding them on their meagre funds. Plenty of stews and casseroles with Holly's vegetables, and the most basic supermarket products. But even Quinn, with her modest tastes, was beginning to find their diet dull. "Does Sophia drink?" Joe says. "I have to keep reminding myself she's not a kid anymore." "She might choose to abstain. I got the impression she's coming here to make some big life changes." Quinn thinks of the first email Sophia sent her. "I know inheriting such great wealth is a privilege and I should be living my best life, but I feel overwhelmed. I'm too young to be in charge of everything. I feel out of control. I need perspective." "I'm sure she'll be happy to eat as we usually do, after today." "I will need to make today special," says Joe. "Give her a proper welcome." He points to the 5 large aubergines on the chopping board on his workstation. "I'm making mellizzano salata. Sophia's favourite dip. She used to eat it by the spoonful. She'll love it." "Are you talking about Sophia?" Holly, Joe's wife, bustles into the kitchen. "What will she love?" "Mellizzano salata," says Joe. "Oh, yes, she'll love that." Holly's mass of mousy brown curls skims Quinn's face as she kisses her cheek. "I hardly slept at all, too excited." "So I hear," Quinn says as Holly pulls her in for a tight squeeze. Holly, firm and fit from all the gardening she does, is so different from the frail creature Quinn met all those years ago in Ibiza. A young woman broken by the trauma of her teenage years. A young woman Quinn put back together. "I feel great, though, really great." Holly's dark blue eyes are bright and alert, despite the lack of sleep. She hums as she fills the community's large metal kettle, puts it on the hob and lights the gas beneath it. Holly is often dishonest about her feelings. Crying in Quinn's arms one moment, putting on an impenetrable show of cheeriness to the others the next. Today, Holly's happiness seems genuine, but Quinn detects a dizzy energy lurking beneath it. The community's financial situation has been tough for everyone, but Holly has been especially anxious at the thought of Pure Heart failing. Sophia's arrival has given her a vital injection of hope. Holly drops a handful of Quinn's mountain tea into a teapot and returns to Joe's side. She wraps her arms around him and he kisses the top of her head. Quinn notes their almost loose t-shirts and Birkenstock clogs. A sweet couple and perfect together, despite their different backgrounds. Sophia used to love helping Joe out in the kitchen, Holly says. Quinn smiles. She did. She can see Sophia clearly, sitting on a stool at the workstation, her small plump hands gripping a mixing spoon, her round face dusted with flour. One afternoon, when Sophia was 6 years old, Quinn found her at the workstation pressing a heart-shaped cookie cutter into a sheet of rolled dough. "I'm making heart biscuits for everyone," Sophia said, "to show you all I love you." "Are they pure hearts?" Quinn said. "They're chocolate chip ones," Sophia smiled. "The best hearts of all." The wheezing kettle brings Quinn back to the present. Holly releases Joe and hurries over to the hob. "I hope Sophia's grandparents treated her well," she says. "I'm sure they gave her the best of everything," says Quinn. Holly lifts the whistling kettle off the hob and pours water into the teapot. "The day she left, I promised her she could come back and visit. I knew it was a lie." "You were only trying to make her feel better," Joe says. "Her life must have been so different to the one she had here." Holly slots the lid onto the teapot. "Eva would have wanted her to stay with us." "And now she will be," Quinn says, "for a month at least. Or maybe more, who knows? She doesn't want to put any limits on this miracle. Sophia might want to stay for good." "We'll make sure she's happy here," Holly says. "Aye," Joe says, "we will." When Holly offers Quinn tea, she refuses. So much to do, she has to get on. "Are you still happy to set the table up outside?" she asks Holly. Today they will eat lunch in the courtyard, underneath the white canvas sails that shelter them from the sun in the summer months. "Of course." Holly pours tea for her and Joe into 2 mismatched china cups. "Would you mind letting Mel help you?" Quinn asks. "I think she's finding all the upheaval stressful." "Well, she has had you to herself for a while," Holly says. A sharp scratch on her left ankle makes Quinn gasp. She looks down to see one of the kittens sparring with the hem of her dress. "Mel asked some questions last night," Joe says, "about Eva." Quinn swoops down and picks up her attacker. The kitten calms immediately when she strokes. "Not much." Joe picks up his knife. "Gossiping about Eva would dishonor her memory." "I agree," Quinn says. The community has told Mel the basic details of Eva's suicide and the events that followed, and, up until now, Mel has been sensitive enough not to press them for more information. "We need to remember Mel's new here. We've had our ups and downs over the years, but God, yes," Holly says. "But we've always come through them," continues Quinn. "We can't expect Mel to have our insight. Living in a community's not always easy." Joe applies his knife to the nearest aubergine and slices it into 2 halves. "Sometimes tough decisions have to be made." "We can't always agree on everything," Holly says. "Conflict is inevitable." "And healthy," Quinn says. Joe and Holly have been with her from the start of Pure Heart. Reliable and trustworthy, they've helped her overcome all the challenges of the past 18 years. But in the end, the needs of the community come first. Another slice of aubergine succumbs to Joe's blade. "That's what it takes to survive," he says. We will survive, Holly asks Quinn. Won't we? Of course. Quinn doesn't want to admit there were times after Charles died when she feared she might lose what mattered most. Her dream, their dream. This visit is the abundance we prayed for, Holly says, isn't it? It is, Quinn says. I know it. We're totally with you, Holly says. We'll do anything to keep this place going. This is our home, Joe adds. Why would we want to be anywhere else? We don't want to leave here. Tears glisten in Holly's eyes.